All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Yesterday, all three cable networks went live for more than 10 hours to bring you the riveting rival testimony of the House Intelligence Committee counsels from the Republican and Democrat side. As you can imagine, they disagreed with each other. The Democrats asked questions to get sound bites for Twitter to the Republican one, and the Republicans did the same to the Democrat. And when the pundit class was done salivating over this elite drama over whether it's okay to temporarily endanger Ukrainian military aid, they picked up a story of equal importance, whether the FBI investigation into President Trump was properly initiated, and whether these officials conducted themselves above board. As predicted, MSNBC and the New York Times spun the newly released IG report as vindicating for the FBI. Conservatives pointed out the many documented instances of abuse of power. But both these stories perfectly tell you the obsessions of our political elite. Their bad faith blame games marked as a real struggle over who gets to pull the levers of our American oligarchy. And they utterly pale in comparison to the one that we briefly touched on this show yesterday, when the Washington Post revealed a secret government report which detailed American officials admitting on the record that for nearly 2 decades we were systematically lied to about the war in Afghanistan, and that statistics were manipulated at the request of the White House and the Pentagon to paint a rosier picture. That to this day, we have no idea what we are doing in that country. How much time do you think that got on cable news? I'll tell you the answer. Barely any, because that story broke in the morning before all these very important shenanigans started. If there is going to be a long congressional inquiry, shouldn't it be on this? Shouldn't every single U.S. official who secretly told U.S. government investigators they lied to us come and be forced to admit it to our faces? And if we are to have a long report on the conduct of American government officials and finds failures, recommends fixes like that IG report, shouldn't we have that about a war that has cost us $2 trillion? Impeachment is a 46 issue. I can bet you that this would have 100% support. But sadly, I, like you, know that this will never happen because it implicates everybody. A report released by the Washington Post demonstrates perfectly the bipartisan boondoggle that is the war in Afghanistan. The Obama White House lied to us just as much as the Bush White House, and probably just as much as the Trump White House. There are no cheap political points to be scored, and besides, everybody is making too much damn money. The report really shows, in its totality, how people of immense power can still be cowed by the military-industrial complex anytime they had misgivings about what was going on in Afghanistan. As a former 3-star general who was Afghan policy head for Obama and the Bush White House, Douglas Lute, said to investigators, quote, "We were devoid of a fundamental understanding of Afghanistan. We didn't know what we were doing. What are we trying to do here? We didn't have the foggiest notion of what we were undertaking." Furthermore, a 2017 study even found that the swing states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin would have gone for Hillary Clinton if the number of war casualties were lower. Higher military casualties can literally swing elections, as they should. All of this is to say is if we're going to have a national debate over something, let it be this. Let it be about how we spend billions of dollars a day in a godforsaken part of the world that doesn't want us there. And let all of you who are voting in the Democratic Party think long and hard about who you decide to support. Because if you're not ready on day one to totally commit yourself to a different direction, you're just going to get steamrolled like all of the rest of them. That's the most important thing that I learned from this, which is I know that President Trump has a sincere conviction that he wants to get out of Afghanistan. I actually believe the same about Barack Obama. Both of them were steamrolled by the military-industrial complex and by the generals. Both of them were completely void of strategic thinking. And look, I want to put as much possible blame as I can on all these people. But the truth is they were fighting forces of such immense power that you need somebody with an equal amount of power in order to push back. I mean, and if you think about it from a democratic perspective, it's insane that we live in a country which 3 presidential elections in a row has voted to get out of Afghanistan. And we are still in Afghanistan. What kind of state and democracy do we live in when that is the case?
And it disgusts me. And I know you and I both know people who have served in this war and lost various pieces of themselves and came back different people, and for what?
Right.
The drug production of Afghanistan is higher than ever. The Taliban controls more areas, has more power. I mean, what have we been doing there for all these years? it's a perfect illustration, too, of they came in, we're just going to go, we're going to get al-Qaeda out, we're going to get bin Laden, and then we're going to go. It was the good war, right? That was Obama's thinking, was Afghanistan was the just war and Iraq was the wrong war. It was the good war. And then what happens when you get in and when you have all these companies and all these people making all this money in the war effort, you will never come out. Yeah. And that is the reality that we've seen there. And then to see, look, I don't think that this report is really a surprise for anyone.
The best part, right?
Everyone knows that this is the case. And yet to see these government officials admitting outright, we didn't know what we were doing, and admitting outright, we cooked the books to try to convince the American public that we were winning and we were making progress when the exact opposite was true. To see that in black and white is so stunning and disgusting, but you're absolutely right. You know, kudos to the Washington Post for digging on this and to pulling...
And suing. They had to sue the U.S. government to get it.
Yes, exactly. And kudos to them for doing it. But you're right, you won't see it on cable news because it's not an easy Team Blue or Team Red decision. And so Fox won't want to cover it because it implicates one of theirs, and MSNBC and CNN won't want to cover it because it implicates one of theirs. It doesn't fit into a convenient Trump is good or Trump is bad narrative. And so it'll be a one-day story, even though we spent $2 trillion. How many lives of Americans, how many lives of Afghans have been lost in this war?
We didn't even talk about that. That's
in
hundreds of thousands.
Blip on the radar. Blip on the radar.
And that's what I mean. I mean, politics, congressional action, attention, Washington, it's a zero-sum game. When you're focusing on one thing, you're not. They like walk and chew gum. It's fake. It's not true. So when we're having this long, national, drawn-out cable news obsession over temporarily touched Ukrainian military aid, it just goes to show you that the people of this country who lost families, whose brother or father came back, son came back, and was never the same, people who have come back from that war and have committed suicide, they see that side by side to this Washington Post report. I actually saw a tweet from Jake Tapper about how the political media elite might be obsessed with this story, but that a lot of Gold Star moms that he knew were in tears reading this story. Can you imagine reading that story? And can you imagine having attended the funeral of your son in which you were handed a flag in which he had been killed in war, and then opening this up and seeing Douglas Luke, the 3-star general, saying, quote, we had not the foggiest understanding of what we are to do. This is what Congress is supposed to be doing. They are supposed to be overseeing the people's funds. They are the people who are supposed to be regulating the nation's wars. And if we're going to have something like this, only Josh Hawley, from my understanding, even met with John Sopko, who's the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan, and was trying to bring any attention to this yesterday. Every single other person in Congress is trying to dunk on each other about Christopher Wray and James Comey. These are petty squabbles. We're talking about $2 trillion. We're talking about so many people who have died. I mean, we've always talked about this. The working class of this country is the one who pays the price for these wars.
They're the ones who send
the
their
elite
sons
kids don't
and daughters.
Go fight in
That's
the military.
Absolutely right.
The highest concentration, what is the state of West Virginia? And if you look in working class districts by district in that electoral report that I highlighted, the one with the most amount of working class support are also the people who lost the most amount of people in the war.
Here's what I want to see from these politicians, every single one of them. Next time you're going to get us into war, your kids go first. Okay? Then you tell me which conflicts we're going to enter overseas. It's really that simple in my eyes, because to them it's costless. Doesn't mean anything. It's irrelevant. It's theoretical. They see a report, oh, that's too bad, they move on. But for so many Americans, these are their lives. These are the lives of their kids, and there's just no understanding of that. It's disgusting.
I'm looking forward to your radar next, Crystal.